Good morning. Welcome to Viewpoint. I'm Pat Lawson-Muse. D.C.'s Department on Disability Services has made great strides since the court-ordered closing of Forest Haven in 1991. The new initiatives are making it a lot easier for those with disabilities to be integrated into the community and to find work. To talk to us about the initiatives this morning are Andrew Reese, who is Deputy Director for the Rehabilitation Services Administration under DDS. Laura Nuss is Director of DDS. And Ricardo Thornton is with Project Action. Welcome all of you to Viewpoint. Laura, tell us about some of your newest initiatives.
Well, we have several newest initiatives. I would say the most important is Employment First. Many initiatives across government agencies that we like to think we're taking the lead on to really make sure that people with disabilities under Mayor Bowser's administration really have that pathway to the middle class, not like anybody else in the city. So Employment First is a big effort to make sure that people with disabilities are really included in the workforce development system. Take us back, if you will, to 1991 when the court ordered Forest Haven, which was the city's facility for those who were disabled, when it was closed because of conditions there and because of the programs, the lack of programs there. Tell us what happened. Well, the city was sued back in the 1970s, actually, on the conditions of the institution for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and that lawsuit finally concluded with an order to close that institution. And the condition in that institution, like many all over the country, was really inadequate. The services were poor, the conditions that people lived in were poor, and it really was just not a way to segregate and put people with intellectual and developmental disabilities away from your community. So it finally closed in 1991. People moved into the community, into small homes throughout Washington, D.C. And unfortunately, the quality of those services in the community never really met the standards that were required in that court order and that subsequent settlement agreements that were crafted. So the case never ended. And so now it's 39 years old. It is the oldest class action in the United States. But we're happy to say that after many years of really hard work that we are approaching the end of the case. We've met 66 out of 70 exit criteria. And the real story about that is that really the people's lives that we're supporting throughout the city have really improved in a substantial way. And there's just been significant change in the quality of services that the city residents have.
Ricardo, you lived at Forest Haven with your wife.
Yes.
So tell us what life was like for you then.
It was at first, it was a place where we went, we didn't have decision making at that time, but we were there. We went cottages, and I got to know when I was there, I had a sister. Her name was Earlene, who was there, which we didn't even know. I had a brother who was there, didn't even know. So family disconnect, trying to bring families together. But the overall picture was that it was an institution that had a lot of good and a lot of bad, and a lot of sad times. But sometimes we got over those times.
A lot has changed for you since then.
A lot has changed. I got out. I was going to school, special ed. Graduated. I got a little part-time job at the library, and I'm going on 36 years at the Martin Luther King Library, which they said it probably last a year. I'm still there.
Wow.
So I'm feeling like I'm part of a team. And my wife, who works at Walter Reed, and she's now working out in Bethesda. So
you're a success story.
But she's an amazing person. She was here. She had a dream. It all came from her dream, I guess. Going down Forest and being on a swing, asking some things that she really wanted when things got too hectic. She had a dream that she wanted to get married, have a family, raise a child, and we did that. Her dream came true.
Dreams come true. All right, we're going to continue our talk with you about the Department on Disability Services in the district right after this break. Stay with us. talking about the Department on Disability Services in the district, and Andy Reese, who is Deputy Director for the Rehab Services Administration. You are responsible for matching employers and people with disabilities. Talk about the work that you're doing and how what you're doing has helped to satisfy the criteria required by the court.
We're working very closely within DDS, we work very closely with the Developmental Disability Administration, helping to coordinate services so that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities get the services and supports that they need in order to enter the workforce and be successful, as Ricardo has been. Mm-hmm. And our goal with the Employment First initiative is to see that all people with disabilities are able to enter the workforce and to create a workforce system in the district that includes people with disabilities at all levels, and where the government is the leader in this, where the government system is demonstrating to businesses that this is the way in terms of being an inclusive workforce system, creating opportunities. The mayor has created a new program this year, Project LEAP, where they're creating positions. Initially, this is to help people moving off of TANF and homelessness, but it's going to be a broader program helping people enter the middle class by creating internships within the government where people can then move into jobs. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of work that we do with people, where we work with people with disabilities to help prepare them, to help provide training. We start as early as high school with them to move them into the workforce. And we also work on the other side with businesses to help them understand what it means to be an inclusive business and to help them see how hiring people with disabilities is a benefit to their business. We don't approach them asking them to do us a favor by hiring this person with disabilities. We approach them to help them see that hiring the people that we have who need jobs are people that can benefit their business, and demonstrate to them that the person working there and the kinds of supports they may need are not a big expense to them, and that in fact they add to the benefit to the company.
Laura, how receptive are DC businesses, and how do they stack up against businesses around the country when it comes to hiring and providing employee awareness about the needs of those with disabilities?
I think they stack up well with the rest of the country, and I think perhaps we're probably a leader in some regards. We have the benefit of not just the lot of the work that we've done here in the city with our business leadership, but then we also benefit from the federal government. The federal government has been a major leader in employment for people with disabilities. They have stepped up as an employer to make sure that people with disabilities are included in their workforce. And so with that interchange with the federal government, they've also passed regulations that their contractors must hire people with disabilities, so that we in the Washington metropolitan area clearly have, you know, that advantage of many businesses that do work with the federal government as well as DC government. And so, you know, I think it gives us a bit of an advantage to have both DC government and the federal government really knowing how important that is to include people, to include diversity in the workforce. And so I think they probably are helping us be leaders in the nation in this area to really demonstrate the value of people with disabilities in the workplace. And you know, we find our best advertising is the successful employer who has experienced what it means and how it's benefited their entire company. So I think we do very well.
Ricardo, tell us about the work that you're doing with the library.
Yes, well, I'm now a library technician where I process material books, and I don't get to see the public as much as I used to when I used to share books. Mm-hmm. But I get to process materials and get them ready to go downstairs so people can receive their books for reading.
I can tell you love your work.
I found something that I always look at my job, and people on my job are part of a team. And I guess I get that from Special Olympics because they're all one team. Mm-hmm. And in order for me to be successful, I want to be part of that team. So. Mm-hmm.
And how did you get the job?
I got the job through special ed. Half a day training, the other half a day was in school, and they had a backlog, and they called me when I graduated, they were looking for some part-timers. And I said yes, but I forgot I was still riding the bus to and from Forest Haven. So the transition was I was getting ready to come into the community, and I got a job.
Andy, moving those with disabilities into the community has been a challenge. That's one of the areas that DDS is still working on.
Helping people be successful in the community is what we're working on, and ensuring that we have a community that is open to them and welcoming to them. I mean, and when Ricardo talks about the important thing, he mentions that he got his job when he was in high school. One of the things we know is that youth who work prior to graduation are far more likely to then enter the workforce after graduation. And so we're working closely with the school system in the district, with the public and public charter schools, in order to create those kinds of opportunities for students with disabilities so that they can exit school with a solid plan for their future.
You also mentioned, Ricardo mentioned transportation. That's a big problem can be a big problem for those with physical disabilities.
Physical and cognitive disabilities, it can be. We are fortunate. We have a good relationship with Metro. Metro has both training programs to help people with learning how to take public transportation, how to navigate different public transportation routes. There's also Metro Access, which helps people with physical disabilities who can't use the regular Metro system to get to certain areas. But they do have, people with physical disabilities in particular have extra challenges, particularly when the elevators are broken in the Metro system. I mean, we all experience that frustration, but imagine you're a person with using a wheelchair that you can't go down the escalator, you can't go down the stairs. Likewise, Metro Access has been known to have some of their challenges sometimes with timing, but they've been very responsive to us. People with disabilities are on their advisory board, and it's just recognizing that there's additional challenges sometimes for people that we need to be mindful of.
All right, we'll take a break and continue our discussion about DDS right after this break. Andy Reese, just wanted to complete our discussion about transportation and the challenges that those with physical disabilities face. The city's taxi cab commission has changed its complaint process to address the problems that those with physical disabilities and minorities have been facing in the taxi cab business.
That's correct. And recently they have also changed their rules to require taxi companies to provide a certain percentage of cabs that are accessible for people in wheelchairs, because accessing a taxi cab has always been an issue for people with wheelchairs being able to get their wheelchair into the cab. And so having a certain percentage that are the right size and can accommodate a person in a wheelchair is a new rule that they've instituted through the help of advocates in the community who've worked with the commission, including people from the statewide Independent Living Commission who sit on the Taxi Cab Commission.
And Laura, how's the city's parking meter policy working?
It had some challenges initially, but the Red Top program, it has had a lot of evaluation. It does seem to be working. The Office of Disability Rights, who's also in the district government, they work closely with the Department of Public Works and Transportation to make sure they're working, they're in the right places, there's enough of them. But while the community, I think the at-large community had a bit of a reaction to it initially, it does seem to be successful.
And then there though, are still those who complain that people who are not living with disabilities sometimes park in those places or block those spaces.
Yes, they do, but they are being enforced, and you have to have handicap tags, and so they are being enforced. And I'm sure you're always going to have complaints, as with any program, but they really have made a difference for people who can now find parking, find it in a little more convenient location, and it does provide a longer period of time, so that rather than 2 hours, they get 4 hours of paid parking. So while there will always be complaints and some glitches, it has really made a difference, I think.
Ricardo, you are working with Project Action, which is an advocacy group. Tell us about the work that you're doing and why it's making a difference.
Well, the work we're doing is that we like coming together. We had lots of issues and concerns, things that wasn't working, problems after problems after problems, so we came together with a group. Advocacy has been in action for years, but we came together and joined, and we become Project in Action. And we do a lot of inviting Laura and some of them to come down to hear our concerns and complaints, and they try to, when we fix them, we try to fix those and resolve some of the problems. Issues comes out a lot about transportation, you just talked about, and the other one is about employment. One is about the training, going to the doctors talking to the person and not talking to me. I'm a person with a disability. You're checking me out. Examine me, but sometimes they go to the person that brought me and give the information. We try to do advocacy to change things like that.
Andy, is that because of a lack of awareness? Are people trying to help when they do that, or do they not realize that that may be offensive to the person, to the patient?
Well, exactly. It's a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding that the person that you're treating is the person in front of you, and that person is entitled to the same kinds of things any of us would want when we go to the doctor, or when we go to work, or when we go and engage with someone in a store somewhere, is for them to treat us like they would treat any other person. And that's what being fully included in the community is about.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment.
Where's Andy?
Welcome back. Andy Reese, you are putting people to work, and tell us about the jobs that are now available for those with disabilities.
The whole range of jobs that are available for all the rest of us. The people that we worked with last year include people who went on to do cleaning offices, as well as attorneys, school teachers, social workers. People with disabilities represent the whole range of people in the community, and that's part of what people need to understand, and that's what businesses need to understand. Sometimes they recognize the person as a disability, sometimes they don't, but people with disabilities could be any one of us, and they have the same strengths and abilities that everyone else does.
And you're training our schools, helping to improve the lives of young people?
Yes, and we're working closely with the schools. A bill that passed last summer requires us, in fact, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act requires us to begin working with youth at age 16 to help them prepare for their post-school plans, including employment or post-secondary education.
Ricardo, you're working with the President's Commission on Disabilities.
Yes, I was appointed by the President, Barack Obama, and which was an honor. And the committee, we're meeting. Right now, we are in process of getting a report through. So we're meeting as a group. It's been awesome. It's been really, really amazing work.
That says you're amazing, Ricardo. You are. Laura, we've come a long way since the days of group homes and protests about group homes in neighborhoods.
We have. We have. Today's services are much more individualized, much more personalized. We serve people. Actually, people don't want group homes anymore, the people we support. People come to have certain services and supports that they can choose from. We support over 800 people who live with their families throughout the city or on their own. People who live in apartments, in the row homes. Ricardo and Donna have their own home in Northwest. So today's services for people, group homes are dead. We still have them, but when people come to us, that's not what they want. They want services that are really tailored to specific interests and goals, employment, help with being included in their community, accessing retirement services, recreation, health care. It's no longer you come and we put you in a spot. It's really about how can we help you achieve your goals and ambitions just like you and I.
Alrighty.
So it's really changed.
All right, Laura Nuss, Andy Reese, and Ricardo Thornton, thank you all for joining us on Viewpoint.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with us. I'm Pat Lawson-Muse. Stay with us now for News 4 Today.
Thank you.